Shalom and welcome to People on the Path. My name is Adam Lowy, and I am the lifelong learning Moreh Derech at Congregation Beth Sholom in San Francisco. Each month, I will welcome dynamic guests to discuss, learn, and consider what it means to be on the path. How does an individual's choices impact their path? How do the various communities that an individual participates in change their lives forever? What unsuspecting moments became the powerful ones that inform personal and professional journeys? Where does one's relationship to their Jewish identity take surprising turns, and how does it spiritually manifest? I intend for the conversation to be intimate, unscripted, and informal. The possibilities and potential will be infinite. The directions, ways, and paths will be explored, discovered, and open. So let us please take a walk together on this month's People on the Path. Now, it has become tradition for me to check in with our senior rabbi, Rabbi Dan Ain, before I introduce our guests. So, Rabbi Ain, can you join me? Hello.
Hello.
Always a treat of our month to get to do a People on the Path. I always enjoy seeing you in this way. Bringing in, it is actually today, it is Friday, which is actually, sometimes we used to do this live and it was on Fridays. So it was a nice way to bring in Shabbat. So I'm grateful that it is Friday today and we get to do this with our guest today. So, I always ask you how you're doing, but I'm going to always go a little bit more specific. We've started to welcome community members back to Beth Sholom for in-person events. I wanted to ask you, how is that going for you, and more precisely, how is it feeding you?
Well, we don't feed people. We're not allowed to have food at the shul. So that's the first. Somebody said to me after the first Shabbat service a couple weeks ago, they said, it's just not the same saying Kaddish over Zoom as it is in person. And it's just not the same. So it's been really positive. I think the people who have come, look, it's not been easy. The state guidance is and seems like a moving target sometimes, and we're trying to keep up with it to the best of our ability, but we have all the safety precautions in place. And we just want to make sure that people are able to come back and be healthy and safe and pray again. So, the first service, we had people behind fans and separated by 12 feet. And the last Shabbat, it was 6 feet away. And, I think as we go through in the coming weeks and months, we'll begin to be closer and closer to each other. And I think that's what people miss the most. And I think sometimes we forget. I think it's easy to forget. And I think even for, we have to do the service a little bit quicker. My timing is getting better, but, we're learning how to do the service a little bit quicker in a shorter time period so that we're not lingering too long. We can't hug when we walk around with the Torah, so that's sad. But we're happy to be there for all of the imperfections. And I think people understand that, and they're just eager to get back together and be able to pray and come to shul and hopefully then feed ourselves afterwards.
And so, if you can kind of leave the logistics and the constant reiterating of how this is going to go, what did it do for you? Like, how did it move your spirit that first time when everyone walked back in?
I realized I could still do my job. I have to tell you that you joke, you laugh, but I realized that I could still, because I haven't practiced really as a rabbi. I did a couple of heavy masked funerals and a number of funerals, but it's different when you're in a community and engaging with Torah in a live setting, interacting with people, having ideas, having people disagree, and having people be together. That's Judaism. So I realized I can still do this job and I still love it. And let me tell you, 16 months in your stretchy pants will get you to forget that.
But you got back on the rabbi bike pretty easily. And and I know that people are super excited about it all. So I know that you are excited about our guest today. You and I
Yes.
discussed the importance of having this guest. So I'm going to ask you to shut it down for a moment.
Well, I just want to say before you invite I'm not going to, come on. I just want to say before you invite the guest in that this is one of the saddest parts about not one of the saddest parts, but a sad part about this is that we haven't gotten to welcome Vered into our community.
True. It's true. I know.
And Vered's, Vered's not just the ED. She's, she is a fascinating, brilliant, interesting, inspiring human being that everyone who gets to know her just responds to. And I feel like it's been so sad that people have gotten to know her as this functionary, as opposed to this real, amazing human being that we're blessed to have be a part of our community. So I think this is a good step in the right direction. And in addition to everybody meeting her and coming to get to know how blessed we are as a community to have ED. So thank you for hosting her. And that now I'm going.
Beautifully said, and it's true. And I'm really excited to give the community an opportunity to get to know Vered a little bit better today. So it is my honor to welcome this month's guest, Vered Cohen. Vered is the Executive Director here at Beth Sholom. I believe she started in November of 2020. It's hard to remember at this point when months start and end. But Vered brings 20 plus years of experience, knowledge, and abilities in advanced operational support and business management. Vered believes that informal education has been the cornerstone of her career. Vered rose to leadership positions primarily through an experiential pathway. Vered is a self-taught professional who has acquired knowledge, competencies, and experience through personal initiative, research, exploration, and hands-on application of innovations. Vered has a natural inclination to see the big picture and figure out the tools necessary to advance an organization to operate in a more efficient way. Vered aspires to be a lifelong learner as it allows her to passionately continue to learn and apply new concepts and ideas to support her professional and personal growth. And lastly, Vered, I want you to turn your camera on as I say this last sentence because I want to see your reaction. I'm going to give Vered a chance to turn her camera on. Vered, are you on? I can't see so well. I assume yes. Okay. And this is my final sentence. Vered is the silver lining to all that is taking place at Beth Sholom, and we are grateful for that. So, Vered. Hello, the silver lining. I don't know who remembers, but Vered dressed up at our first in-person anything that we were allowed to do was our Purim mini carnival, and Vered dressed as the silver lining, and I loved that. I was just so the layers of like what that meant to me, and that the fact that you like owned it like that was amazing. So whoever saw her dressed that day saw what she meant, and it's literal and it's figurative and it's a lot of things for us. So Vered, welcome to People on the Path. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really looking forward to this conversation, and I just need to start by asking, how are you doing?
So a little bit flattered and overwhelmed by the introduction that I received by Rabbi Ain and yourself. I am super appreciative and humbled by these wonderful, kind words. So that's already elevated my spirit for today, because a minute ago I was fully occupied with all the things that I was doing and will continue to do afterwards. So thank you for that little break and elevation of spirit. Yeah.
Well, we all deserve to be elevated and have our spirit, uplifted. So I'm glad that happened, and that's a perfect way to start this. So let's keep it up that high, and I'm excited to learn more about you and how you got to Beth Sholom in this role. And so when I say, according to your bio and stories that you've shared with me and the staff, I would say your path has not been direct or a commonly taken one. So when did you know that you would blaze your own trail?
Always. because it always has been, the one thing I truly know is that I will change and evolve. That's the one constant thing, which is, I guess, nothing about it is constant. But I like learning new things, and when I do, I like to experience them, right? I found myself in this position right now as it is kind of a natural sort of culmination of everything that I have learned and done. Being an ED of a congregation is has so many layers to it. You really have to be experienced in so many different things, from finances to public relations to one-on-one sort of connections with people, and operations and understanding of new upcoming innovations to assist with with administration and all of these things. So this is kind of like every job that I've done in the past has brought me this experience and knowledge to be able to enjoy this, and find it easier to navigate, I guess.
Awesome. So we're gonna spend this next little while kind of unpacking how you got to this time, right? And so we're gonna go way back. As you know, people on the path's an opportunity for us to learn about an individual's journey, and to celebrate it and to help our community members kind of come to the realization or accept the fact that we all come from very unique places. And so I'm excited to dig into how you got to here today, Beth Sholom's Executive Director in 2021. And I think that some people know like where you're from, but again, as I said, your path's not been direct or very straightforward. And probably from how I know you, I would assume that you never really have decided that I'm going to do this and that's going to be my life. Like right. Right. And so let's go back to what was life growing up for you? Like what was like for you growing up? Where were you born and raised? Let's make sure that people understand that, because your accent could throw many people off, I think, to identify where it all started. So tell us a little bit about that.
So yeah, my accent is a mishmash of all the places I've lived in, right? I kind of tend to be like a chameleon. When I'm in a specific area with a dialect, my dialect kind of absorbs the general dialect of the area, and I tend to continue with it for a while. So now I have a mishmash of so many different dialects that have been adapted and absorbed. So I started in Israel. I was born in Israel and lived straight through until I was 19, almost 20 in Israel, and been in the army and all of that. Received a secular upbringing, if that's even mean anything, but Jewish that doesn't do observing of halachic sort of rituals, but we did celebrate all the holidays, and the undertone of what I've realized later on in life, that actually Judaism is an essential part of being a secular Jew. So growing up that way, I never imagined that I would end up an ED of a synagogue at all. It was really far away from anything that I knew. Thereafter, I spent 2 years in England. I studied there administration in college, in a local college. And then I went to South Africa and ended up working starting off as data input in electronics company, and ended up doing accounts for them, not because I studied it, but because it was there was a vacancy, and I was curious about it, and traveled a lot in South Africa, and the surrounding countries. Spent 2 years there. It was interesting, hard, because it was just as the apartheid is coming to an end. So there was a lot of turmoil but good stuff was happening as well. And then went back to Israel for a little bit, and then a few years later spent a year in Ireland, where I opened an Irish bar there, and which is interesting. I had my first Irish bar, the first Irish bar in Israel. It was opened by me and an Irish friend. So there's a interesting sort of thing, as I mentioned, database accounting, and then running bars and restaurants. I ended up having 3 of them in Israel, in Tel Aviv. The first one was an Irish bar. The second one was more on the beach. The third one was a cafe, bar, restaurant. And when I sold it after a few years, I moved to the States, and that was in 2000.
Okay. All right. So let's slow down for a second. As I definitely want to get to the part where you came to the States, but I'm going to go way back to your childhood. You described this secular kind of Jewish identity, which, I think anyone who spends time in Israel comes quickly to understand what that means, and how it's so different than what a Jew outside of Israel considers, and how their identity kind of manifests. So I want to ask, you said that you were raised secular, but you definitely honored all the holidays. So how do you think how did Judaism live in your home? Was there a conscious, this is us doing Jewish things, or was it just what you did as a family? And kind of in addition to kind of the Judaism, was spirituality something that you were feeling in your house as a child?
Mm-hmm. So it felt growing up, the notion was, of course, we're Jews. This is given. We don't have to do anything about it. We're Jews, and of course. Because we're, of course, Jews, we don't have to do anything else, And the holidays is part of being Jewish, That's something that we do, and the whole country is doing it with you. There was no, I think it's the difference between, I'm assuming that the difference between being an American Jew growing secular than growing up in Israel secular is that you're living in a Jewish state where it is known that you are Jewish and that you are following these holidays to whatever level you want to do it. So there was no need for us to hang on to anything because it was available to us in a given sort of way, right? And how it felt, so we didn't end up going to synagogue or anything like that, but the discussions at school, we learn Torah because it's part of the history, it's not even a spiritual thing, but part of the history. But with the discussions and all of the things, it's inevitable that we are engaging with Torah and Judaism and all of that. And that wasn't clear to me until much later on in life, when I came across discussions as an adult here dealing with Judaism. So it was a natural thing in my childhood as this is, of course, what it is. Of course we remember Shoah. Of course we have those discussions. Of course we talk about different parashot. I didn't even connected it as a Torah study, right? Because that was history in a way.
Right.
And later on in life, when I came across those discussions, it became apparent that I even though I didn't consider myself a religious person, and I still don't, and I didn't think that I had any Jewish knowledge. So I'll give you an example. I was a teacher at a congregation at Verd Sholom, a preschool teacher, and the rabbi approached me and said, you know, as part of your job, you need to do Parashat Shavua with the kids periodically. And I said to him, no, I'm not religious. I know nothing about the religion. Please, no, that's not me. You can do it and tell me what to say, and I will say it. It was Rabbi Menachem Creditor. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Yep.
And he looked at me and he said, go read the Parsha, and then whatever comes up for you, this is it. And I said, okay. I went, read the Parsha, came back to him, and I said, no, that didn't work, because I read it. And it actually this is what came up to me, for me, and it doesn't seem like the right thing, you know, it's got nothing to do with the Parsha. And he says, this is it. This is exactly it. And I was like, what? Yes. So Rabbi Creditor opened up Judaism and showed me that actually I've been Jewish all along. And and my understanding of what I was, you know, as growing up secular Jew, I grew up kind of with an aversion in a way to the religion, because my only introduction was Orthodox Judaism that was completely separate from my existence.
Yep.
So my understanding of who I am as a Jew was different than what it really is. So it opened up that I am okay to be accepted as Jewish fully, with all that it is, as I am.
Yeah, I love that. I love to hear that story about Menachem Creditor. I know that he's inspired many people locally and all over the world. So I love that story, and good for him, right? To give you that space, right, and to not just let you get out of it. That's amazing. So I want to ask you that, in America, like we talk about Jewish values a lot, like, and that's something that we teach children about, and we want them to kind of understand and be able to say them and know what they mean, and how they actually can kind of be with these values. So do Jewish values live in the same way in Israel? And if yes, what Jewish values lived most deeply in your home as a child? Like, were there some that your parents kind of were like, this is who we are, these are our values? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So first I want to acknowledge that the way I grew up, it wasn't introduced to me as Jewish values. It was introduced to me as values, as, all human values. There wasn't an understanding of other, I guess, outside of the Judaism, even though we live next to Muslims and Christians and all of the different kind of religions. But it was introduced to me as values for life. And one of the things that my parents were really big on is achnasat orchim. Whenever, at the time when I was growing up in the 70s, there was a lot of tourism in Israel. And there was a lot of hitchhikers, from all over the world. And my dad would pick hitchhikers up that seemed drained and dried up from the sun, and would bring them home, and they will sleep on the floor, because we didn't have much room, but we'll feed them and we'll host them. And, we all were very excited about guests, achnasat orchim. And my family always welcomed people to the table. We had this tiny little apartment, but we would collect tables from the neighbors and put tables from the living room all the way to the kitchen, and collect chairs and just invite people over. I guess my family, we are 5 siblings, and they always felt like it's better to invite people because we're a lot to invite, so there's 7 of us, so we might as well invite people to our house, and we'll end up with like a table of 30 or more people in it around the table. I mean, I remember one Passover that we didn't have enough kippot for all the people that were there. So there was three of us at the same time doing our army service. So we put all our army helmets on and instead of kippas. So that was a memory that is stuck. But Achnasat Orchim was a big one. And another one that I guess is very much embedded in me is B'Tselem Elohim, that always look at the other person, no matter what religion, culture, background they are accepted as, as an image of God. So these are the strong, big ones that remain. But as I said, they were brought over as life values.
And so how have you taken this value of Hachnasat Orchim and B'Tselem Elohim, as kind of these foundational values? How have you brought them into your adult life? And I'm going to ask you that as I know we haven't gotten to this, but I'm just going to say as a mother, I know that you are a mother, and as a community builder, and even into business management. So how does Hachnasat Orchim and B'Tselem Elohim kind of work into who you are today, and even into your work at Beth Sholom?
Yeah. So as a mother, very important thing for me to teach my kids, and it's a continuation. Even today when we were talking about something, I make sure that if I don't align with something that was communicated, I communicate it to my children and mention, this is how we treat people, this is how we communicate. Even though you made a joke and you didn't think, then you really need to think how it can impact another person, because they may not take it as a joke. So always having those conversations with my children, and in a congregational setting, with staff, with members, often in this position of ED, you get so much criticism. People, they don't see all the hard work you put in. They don't see all the efforts. And, when somebody comes in with an attack, the first thing that I try to do is connect with myself and say, it is nothing to do with you. Something is going on for that person. Let's figure it out. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt that they're not trying to personally attack you, and we'll find a good place that is, respectable for both. That's have been my approach, and it's not easy. Sometimes you do get offended, and sometimes staff or congregant, so it's really important for me to stay aligned with what I believe and not get dragged into that kind of,
Often easier said than done, for sure.
Right.
But so, I just imagine to have those kind of foundational values is helpful in that task of seeing the people where they are, and why they're coming at you that way, and how you can see the B'Tselem Elohim in them, right? So
I want to just talk to that. So it's not easy to always be in that space, right? So I have a morning practice that I been going for a few years, where I ask for the strength and the understanding to be able to be the best person I can be. And I do this kind of anchoring sort of kavanah every morning to be able to stay centered.
That's amazing. I'm very curious to hear more about that. What, if you're willing, like what does that look like? How long does that last for you to get centered each morning? Is there a physical component to it?
It is, yeah.
Whatever you're willing to share, I'd love to get a peek.
Yeah, I'm happy to share. It's been going on for quite a few years, and it's something that I had a little lapse in between these last few years that I didn't do it, and it was so impactful when I didn't do it that I decided that I really need to no skipping of any day. And it really takes a few moments. And it's something that I've put together and mishmash again of certain things that I've experienced and that were authentic to me, that felt authentic to me. So it's a combination of sun salutations and things that I've made up that connects me to Hashem and to Mother Earth, and to be able to call on guidance for the day, and it's movements and something that I say at the same time that brings it all together, and it takes really like 5 minutes.
That's awesome. And you do that like first thing? Is
First
it
thing in the morning?
first
Yeah.
thing? So it's a modani of sorts.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Good for you. I'm jealous. I can't. I need that. But I don't do it right now. But I've had similar things, and I could use it again right now. So thank you. I'm gonna keep that in mind moving forward.
When we're in person at some point,
Yes, I
I will
was
show
just
you the
thinking that.
movements and the wording that I use. It will be
Yeah,
fun
I
to
was
share.
just thinking that it would be a nice thing to incorporate into our work ritual once we get back in person regularly. So I'm looking at a question that I often ask people on the path, and I'm wondering what your answer is going to be, because I realize that this question I think I've asked only to people who are not Israeli, who didn't grow up in Israel, which is kind of, this question could be different because of how you've kind of described what it means to be a Jew in Israel versus what it means to be a Jew in the diaspora. And so my question is, was there a clear member of your immediate family or your extended family that kind of held the Jewish ritual and experience for the rest of your mishpacha? Is that, can you point to somebody like a matriarch, a patriarch, or is that again not the same answer that it could be for all of us, because it was just you were immersed in Jewish life?
Exactly. Yeah. There was not a role model or somebody that I could, that I know. Everybody was very much in line with the same sort of practices that we were practicing, if it's grandparents or so on. There was not, everybody was the same. No, nobody went outside of what, yeah. So
Yeah.
I can't say. I think the person that kind of pointed me to the Jewish sign was Rabbi Creditor, I guess.
That's great. Thank you for telling us that. That's again a great lens into Israel in a way that for those who haven't been there wouldn't believe that's true, but it is a real part of my experience when I've been there. So you let's move ahead now a little bit to, so you were in South Africa, you were in England, Ireland, and then you went back to Israel. You opened up 3 businesses. So what happened? What inspired you to leave Israel at that point, and why did you come to America? And I think you said it was 2000 that you came to America.
Yes.
And so like what brought you here at that time?
So I'm embarrassed to say there was no intention of leaving Israel and coming to America. I came for a visit. My 2 brothers were living in Los Angeles at the time, and I visited them before. And I used to say, I'm going to share it. I used to say, "What are you doing here? This is like Barbie's graveyard," I couldn't understand why they would choose to live there. And at the time when I came over, I just sold the business, and I had some money and time and no plans. And I was going to go back to Israel after a trip or study. I wasn't sure. I was open. And I met a person, and that was very interesting. And we got involved in doing the first internet commercials, video commercials. And we were way beyond that time. It was before people had fast internet at home. It was still the dial-up, not even DSL in every home. So video was hard. But we had a couple of, we did some Los Angeles Opera sort of and Hallmark videos. But so I got so excited about the work that I ended up staying, and one thing led to another. I ended up in Hawaii, and that was wonderful 2 years also. So there was no plan, but it ended up, and my brothers ended up leaving and going back to Israel. And they were gone for a long time, over 10 years, and they just, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, came back, and now they're next to me. I'm wondering if I kind of answered the question in a funny way, but there was no intention, specific intention. But one thing led to another, and I felt really comfortable here, and really appreciative of many opportunities, especially in learning and growing. It was very accessible, where learning I found in Israel was financially challenging. So one thing led to another, and it just stuck. Yeah.
And how did you get to the Bay Area? What brought you up to the Bay?
That was a decision because I was living in Los Angeles, and I had 2 little boys, a year and a half old and a 3-year-old at the time. And my year and a half old was, we were in a car, and he was reading a street sign that said XXX. And when I heard that, I was overwhelmed with terrible sort of motherly senses, and said, we have to get out of this city. There's too much XXS available for young children to see, and it's not okay. And I knew that the Bay Area had values that are more aligned with mine, and access to community that I can integrate and feel comfortable with. And we made the move. So
we're grateful that you did. And I love that. I was wondering, wow, he's reading at 1.5, but then you can read a letter.
Yeah, exactly.
Does he know? Does he know now that was like a huge...
I don't know. I wonder if I share that story with him or not. So I will check after this session. Yeah.
All right, I'm about to bring in Rabbi Ain, but I want to ask you one more question. When did you realize that you were a leader?
I don't think I ever think of myself in that way, but I'm always the curious one, and sometimes maybe courageous, because I could feel my heartbeat when I'm pushing limits. Yeah, I would say it's not something that I ever thought of myself consciously as a leader. It's something that naturally happens because I want to know in a way that it's very intense. So it ends up kind of making a path of leadership. I am very good at organizing things. When I was little, I don't know if you remember, I shared in our staff meeting a picture of myself when I was 3 years old.
I remember,
with my lunchbox as a handbag. And that started then. I was in preschool and wearing my lunch bag as a handbag because I was the one that was mother. I was telling everybody where to go and what to do. I was standing next to the preschool teacher and helping her with the dishes and helping her line up the kids. And it's kind of something that is natural for me. I grew up in a family of 5. I'm in the middle, but I'm the organizer. I'm the one that makes sure that all connect, know?
Yeah.
Great.
All right, Rabbi Ain, I know you are back there. Please open up your camera. and welcome back. I know that you and Vered talk multiple times a day, but I assume that this is not the majority of what you're talking about. So what questions do you have for Vered?
Well, I just want to say, first of all, I don't think there would be any objection to opening an Irish pub at 301 14th Avenue. So if you have experience, I think it would do well. So I just want to point that out. We've had success with beer at previous events at the shul. It's just FYI. Just maybe that's information that didn't make its way to you. I think there's, I love the stuff about Hachnasat Orchim. Obviously, that makes this period particularly challenging to do this job when you can't welcome people. I mean, that's the only reason I do all this. My whole, like you, is just bringing people together. And I love the Rabbi creditor story. It just proves to me that the Solomon Schechter Day School of Nassau County, where I graduated and where Menachem graduated, is doing something right. That's my take. So Menachem and I went to the same Schechter.
I did not know that. That's awesome.
On Long Island, he's another Long Islander. Okay, so I have one question that's interesting to me. So you've spoken a little bit about your family, and I'm curious. This is just my curiosity entirely. I think you had a rather aristocratic family. Maybe about 100 years ago, your family seems to have been a part of an aristocracy. You've alluded to that, but I've never really had the chance. Can you share just a little bit about that?
So I don't know if I would call it aristocracy, but my father was brought up in a home in Iraq that was 100 rooms they had like a fountain in the house. They had the first shower in Iraq. They were very wealthy and community people. They had cellars with because they had a lot of fruit trees, they had cellars where they stored jams, and they would they would share a lot of their wealth with people. So
how long were they in Iraq prior to then? How does one get 100 rooms and a fountain? How does that happen?
They were originally from Syria, and then moved to Iraq. I honestly don't know how many generations was that. I am sad to say, but I remember stories of my dad saying that they had a Torah with so many names in the book of the family going back to forever. So, it's kind of sad that we don't have the articles with us, but what we do have is photographs that they were able to share with us and show us the fountain and all of these luxuries that they had. They were also very well educated and traveled, at the time, traveling to France and places like that. That was out of the ordinary, I guess. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's fascinating to hear about that. Thank you for sharing that. What I have a question. What would you might want people to know? So let's be, me, I'm always gonna, position of ED has been a challenging one at Congregation Beth Sholom, historically. So how do you want to how do you get people to know who you are, how to understand how do you communicate your idea of community building? How do we share with the community the different approach? How do you want to express yourself? How would you like people to know you, as opposed to just, now the ED, because you could just be, now Vered's the ED. Okay. So, but how do you humanize that? I have the difficulty myself. People, he's the rabbi now. Okay. Well, whatever. I'm Dan, So how do you get people to know who you are and your approach to community building? How do you do that? How do you want people to know that?
So it's particularly challenging right now in time of COVID, right? Because I have been numerous, just handful of times at the synagogue, right? But my best approach is one-on-ones, so I pick up the phone and I call people and I have those conversations, and I apologize for not being able to meet in person, but hearing them and understanding who they are, so I can really assist the best that I can. And showing up, at the beginning of this conversation, Adam mentioned my silver lining costume. Is whenever we can be in person, show my colors, show who I am, not be shy about it, so people really can choose if they want to get closer to me or just keep me at the ED sort of level.
Yeah, and also one more thing I might add, people also find it challenging to enter into a congregation or to join a community in general. And this community is no different from any other in that respect. How do you welcome people, and how can people who might be watching this or listening to this thinking, oh, I can't call the executive director, or they can't. People are like, oh, I don't want to bother you with your time. There are some people actually who do that, and especially those people are ones who maybe really could benefit a lot from what we have as a community, but are afraid to make the first step. I know you're available always, but I just want you to share that with people. Like, you should know this is an open space. There's no obligation. You can call us. You can ask us what we're all about. And so tell us about that.
Yeah. So if I was in the office, I would say my door is open, right? So it's kind of like, imagine my door is open. My phone, I have my cell phone on my signature. It's not the phone number that is listed as my office number that I get, messages from, but it's my cell phone, my personal. Feel free to call me. And some people do. And when they do, it's great because I get to know them a little bit deeper. I'm very much into community and getting to know people. I'm much better in one-on-one. I feel more comfortable, or small groups. On big scale, I tend to be more reserved and shy, but approach me. Feel free. If you see me at the shul in any event, feel free to come and talk to me. I may be sometimes shy and maybe not. It really depends on where I am at the moment, but I'm always accepting people to come. And I'm open also when it comes to who is Jewish, right, and why, and if you even want to be considered Jewish or not. I'm open to hearing people from anywhere, from every aspects of their of life, from any denomination or any religion. Or I'm a very open person, and I can't see myself saying there is a person in the world that I'm not interested in hearing from or trying to understand. So yeah, a very approachable.
Thank you. Amen. Thank you for that. I just wanted people to know that about you in particular. And thank you for doing this, People on the Path. And great job as always, Adam. I'm leaving.
Thank you, Rabbi Ain. Vered, this has been amazing. I love that we've had this opportunity, because we don't usually have this opportunity, and so I'm grateful that we've had it. And I'm gonna put you through the next part of this People on the Path experience, which is the speed round of questions. I ask each guest these same questions, and are you ready?
Sure.
The idea is that you don't spend a lot of time thinking about your answer. Just let us have it. So my first one is, what are the 5 necessities that you must have with you on the path?
The 5. Treating people with respect and love and kindness. Open ears, listening, accepting, so not to judge. Did I say 5 already? Yeah.
Amazing. I love that you did not actually have any physical objects. Everyone else has always said like, a water bottle and snacks. I love that you just went
Yeah.
immediately to principles and values. Awesome. Uh, what's your favorite Jewish holiday?
Ooh, I have a few. So Passover, because so many people at the table, and there's singing and interaction, and I love that. And it's around my birthday, so I always wonder: is it going to be on the day? Is it going to be outside of the day? And but it's around my birthday, and Purim, because I get a chance to dress up, and people get to be silly, and we don't get many opportunities to be silly, and that's a wonderful thing to experience on a yearly basis, to have a day where you can. So two. I can't really
Great.
choose one.
That's you enjoy the spring time,
Yeah.
the Chagim, yes. I don't know if you've been having much time to read lately, but I'm going to ask: have you read any great books lately? Yeah, what should we know about one that you've read or something that's inspired you recently?
Sure. Yeah. It's I'm going to pull out the name to see out of my library here. Let's see, where is it? Here it is. The Art of Living by Thich Nhat Hanh.
And
I don't know
any,
if you're familiar with it.
yeah, I've heard of, I haven't read it, but I've heard about it recently. And is there some takeaway, like why that book?
So I find that there's a lot of correlation between my spiritual journey as a Jew and Buddhism and their understanding of how to navigate the world. And I draw a lot of information from there. And in particular, Thich Nhat Hanh, his very easy way of bringing it forward.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then the last speed round question before I have one final question is: if you could walk the path with anybody, it could be somebody that's alive now, it could be somebody that's past, it could be somebody as their future self. Who would you like to walk the path with?
It has to be one.
You can say a couple.
Okay. So quite a few. So I want to continue no matter what, no matter which path I'm taking. I would like to keep my family, which is my siblings, that I can't imagine life without them. My sisters, I connect with them almost on a daily basis, even we're across many seas. And my brothers are local here with me right now, so I can't imagine going through life without my siblings, and my two boys too. It's I learn from them all the time. And it's been an amazing experience to be a mother on this path with them. So can I bring them all along?
Yes, bring them all. All right, so this is a big question, because we're like coming out of a pretty intense time as a world, and certainly in the Bay. And I asked this question both as a as a person in the world, but also as the executive director of Beth Sholom. What do you see ahead of you on the path?
I am optimistic. I see that the situation, it still is concerning, right? And we've been through a lot this year. I'm hopeful that things are going to be a little bit different in the way we interact with each other. I think being alone and experiencing all that turmoil that was rising, if it was the Black Lives Matter movement that was allowed to rise and to kind of illuminate what is going on for them, and what's going on right now in Israel and all of that. So I'm hopeful that all of this will kind of bring us to a place where we can learn how to interact better with each other, how to respect each other, and be in a space together where we can support each other. I mean, we've seen a lot of it already was happening during the pandemic, where people helping people, supporting people, trying to understand the other side when it came to different sort of issues. So I'm hoping that this will unfold for us as we're coming together, like more with love and community and seek each other.
I hope you're right. I hope you are right.
Yeah.
And I'll be next to you to witness that and to make it happen alongside. Vered, anything else that you want to share with us?
Well, I'm honored. I feel really honored to be in on People on the Path. Yeah, thank you for thinking of me.
Thank you, and I'm excited that people will get a lens into who you are beyond your title of executive director. And I know that when we are allowed to be in person more and more, that people are going to see your light and your silver lining and all that you bring to our community. So thank you so much for allowing us to walk on your path with you today. And I wish you, Vered, a Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
And I look forward to continuing working with you.
Thank you. Shabbat Shalom, Adam. Take care.
Thank you. For everyone who's still listening, People on the Path is shared on the last Wednesday of each month. Please keep your eyes and ears open for the next edition, which will be available on Wednesday, June 30th. I'm excited to welcome Rabbi Sandra Lawson, Reconstructing Judaism's inaugural Director of Racial Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Rabbi Lawson is an icon, and she is the Jewish future. You will not want to miss it. So keep your eyes open for that. I thank everyone for joining me, and Vered and Rabbi Ain. I hope this conversation has been valuable and will support your efforts to find your footing and balance as you continue to navigate and blaze your path. One step at a time, I encourage you to walk your path with courage, wonder, curiosity, and an open mind, body, and spirit. I say shalom. It's Friday, Shabbat Shalom. I don't know when you're going to watch this, but I'll say Shabbat Shalom. And Nisiat Tova, safe travels on your path. Thanks, everybody.